Press record. Thank you. Teamwork. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our March NERSC user group community call. Today, we're going to be focusing on a topic that's probably the most important or relevant to principal investigators at NERSC. So, thanks all for joining us, and hopefully you'll see the other folks in this room are probably your peers and that they are also PIs at NERSC. So if you have questions for each other, this is a good time to ask them. All right, so first what we're going to do is go through, we just want everyone to feel really welcome and know that today's call is going to be very interactive. So once I get through some of this information at the beginning, we want to raise awareness of a lot of the information that's in the weekly emails. We know everyone reads them very fastidiously, but just in case you didn't get time, we just cover some of the highlights. And then we're going to go into basically two presentations. One is from Rebecca Hartman-Baker. She's going to give us kind of like the NERSC side of allocation reductions, the information you need in terms of policy and kind of guidelines, how it works. And then longtime NERSC PI John Wright. I think, John, you've been a PI for at least 25 years, if not longer. I think I tried to look. Or maybe a NERSC user for about 25 years, something along those lines.
Yeah.
And so John's going to tell us about how he gets information out of Iris to help him make decisions about what's going on with his allocation. All right, so the NERSC user group is meant to be a community of NERSC users. We really take into account any feedback that you have for us. So, you can email us, you can submit tickets, whatever you need to do, but we really do listen. So if you have thoughts on something you'd like to see the community do or work on, please let us know. We have these regular calls, and we're always looking for new topics, ideas, things that the NERSC users really want to hear about or know about. And you can always join the NUG Slack in order to just, ask questions or see what other people are doing, be part of the community. So just to talk about our training, we have a really robust training program, especially as PIs. You yourselves may take advantage of this, but may also want to direct your collaborators, students, whoever else, to check out some of these resources. All of the videos are like the videos of the trainings, which are just basically recordings, like Zoom recordings, are on our YouTube channel. And they have captions. And then we have the materials posted on the our nersc.gov website. Um, that's also the best place to find information about the upcoming trainings. And you can also see an archive of old trainings in case you want to go back and look at something that was presented previously. In general, we recommend looking at the most recent iteration of it because it will probably have the most accurate information. All right, so big announcement that hopefully you all saw is that Check has arrived. So Check is our early access system. It's sort of a test system for N10, which is called DAVNA. It's named in honor of Thomas Check, who was a chemist. I think Check was DAVNA's advisor. I think that was why that was chosen. And the purpose in general of having like, these kinds of test systems is to pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Start testing things, hardware, software stack, whatever we're hoping to deploy on Doudna, start figuring it out on Check. It's the architecture information. It's pretty generically listed here, but you can find definitely more information in some of the press release or articles that have been released this week. And then basically, as we learn more, get things tested out, the full system will hopefully be available. I don't know to what extent, like maybe we'll have it. I don't exactly remember, but it will be late 2026. And the details about all of that is also available in our articles and press releases. So these are announcements for training things that are coming up. These are things that are all in the weekly email. So if you want access to these links, you can get it from the slides once we post them. But also you can go check out your weekly email because it's already in there. There's a call for proposals for IBM quantum resources. So if you want to use some of those or check those out, make sure you do that soon. You have a day. Um, the HPC immersion program at SC. So SC is the supercomputing conference. It's sort of the premier supercomputing conference. And it takes place in November. There's a really fantastic, very prestigious program called HPC Immersion. And highly recommend if you have students you think could benefit from participating, check that out. The deadline is April 1st. There's the George Michael Memorial HPC Fellowship. You can see some information here, but if you have students or postdocs or so whoever is eligible for this, they may want to look into it. They have until May 1st to apply for this. And it looks like it includes some fun things, including going to SC, which is great. Which will be in Chicago this year. So uh, okay, so we have a ton of training events coming up. There's a machine learning workshop with TAC. This is the Texas uh, Computing Center. I don't remember what all the letters are, but they have a really robust training program as well. But they're part of a university, so we love to sort of co market their training events to our users. There's a containers for portable programming environments training on March 25th. This is a NERSC hosted training event. Definitely check that out. MATLAB webinar for enabling control design with AI. That's going to be on the 26th. You can get information at this link if you check out the weekly email. TAC is also having an applied parallel programming course. Looks like it's a 2-day event, two-part event, and it is open to NERSC users. So if you're wanting to get some hands-on parallel programming experience, if you haven't already, that will probably be a fantastic resource. Let's see what else we got here. We have the Deep Learning for Science School. So this is held at Berkeley Lab. The applications for this are open until April 10th. I think this is a very well produced program. It's a week long. Come to whoever attends has to, I think they have to come in person to the event at Berkeley Lab, and I've heard really good things about this program. We will be having an agentic AI bootcamp at the end of April. So if you are interested in agentic AI, MCP, you've probably heard of Model Context Protocol. NERSC users are invited and welcome to join this bootcamp. I think you just have to register for it. I'm not sure if there's an application process. TAC has their Summer Institute. I don't remember how this works, but there's more details here. You can check out all the different events, the different deadlines. Probably a really fantastic resource for students. And as always, or not as always, maybe especially, we are hiring. So if you have any collaborators, students, so forth, who are really interested in HPC and they're coming on the end of their, whatever they're doing right now, please encourage them to take a look. A lot of NERSC users become NERSC staff, including yours truly, and probably, I mean, definitely also Charles, probably Rebecca as well. Probably a lot of people on this call who are staff started as NERSC users, so that's kind of a really common pipeline for us. So you can see more about all those job listings. Again, online, that's the place to look for them. Okay, I think that is probably the end of my slides. Yes, it is. In which case, I would like us to switch over and get into our topic of the day, which is allocation reductions. So I'm going to switch to these slides. Rebecca, do you want to share them yourself? Or you want me to drive?
Well, you've got it there, so you can go ahead. It's not very
I can
many
drive. All
slides.
righty, take it away.
All right. So good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. I'm going to
Sorry.
talk about allocation reductions. And in case you didn't know, my name is Rebecca Hartman-Baker. I send you all the emails. Okay, next slide. So just a general overview of what we're talking about here. So on a quarterly basis, we rebalance allocations and removing compute time from underutilizing projects. And then that time is provided to the DOE allocation managers, the ones who decided the allocations in the first place. And then they will redistribute it to other projects who may be using the resources in a better way than the people who are underutilizing. Next slide, please. So it's mainly affecting ERCAP projects that were created before the start of the current quarter. So if your project was created at the very beginning of the allocation year, then your project is subject to an allocation reduction potentially this quarter. If your project was created last month, then it's not, but it will be for the following quarter after that. The ALCC Directors Reserve exploratory and educational projects, they are not subject to this scheme, but ALCC has its own separate reduction scheme, and NERSC reserves the right to make reductions in Directors Reserve. Next slide, please. So what happens that makes your allocation get reduced? Well, basically what we're talking about here is if you're underutilizing your allocation compared to your expected utilization rates. So in your ERCAP request, you're asked about your expected quarterly utilization rates. And now by default, we set it to 25% each quarter. But if you indicate otherwise, then it will show up as a different thing, but it has to add up to 100%. So if you said you're going to use 25% and you only use 10%, then you will be subject to a reduction. Next slide. So how can I avoid getting a reduction? So there's two ways. So one way, the preferred way, is if you can meet or exceed your expected utilization rates. And there are quite a few projects who are succeeding at that and who are not in danger of an allocation reduction. And then the second way is you can request an exemption via a NERSC help ticket. And you want to do this at least 2 weeks in advance of the date. So you need to kind of have a good reason, not just, oh, I feel like it, but if there's a legitimate reason why you didn't really get to use your allocation, then that's fine. We will give you an exemption. Gregory, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, a clarifying question, Rebecca.
Mm-hmm.
Is this like you've underutilized in that quarter, or you're like underutilized for the overall yearly basis? Like imagine a scenario where you used 50% of your allocation in quarter one and 0% of your allocation in quarter two. Does that set you up for a reduction on quarter three, even though you're at the 50% mark when you hit the end of quarter
No,
two?
no. So it is cumulative utilization.
Okay.
Thanks for that question. Yeah, that's good. That was a good question. Right. Okay, next slide. Okay, so then what if you are exceeding the expected pace of your utilization? That's great. Thank you. We love you. Thank you. And if you're low on time, then you can actually request additional time from your allocation manager. We have a form in the online help desk that you can fill out. And after allocation reductions, they often have a lot of time to give away so they're pretty open to it. Next. Okay, so the first allocation reduction of this year will take place on April 22nd. So if you're a person who's overutilized, remember that date, because after that date, you should make your request to your allocation manager. So then the second date is going to be July 22nd, and then the third reduction is going to be October 21st. Okay, next slide. Okay, so how do we compute these? So basically, we take away the underutilized portion of your allocation. I tried to write some kind of little pseudo code here, but basically for a given quarter, the nth quarter, we have your expected usage, and then we subtract from that the reductions. Okay, so your expected usage, let's say in the second quarter, is going to be the percent that we expected you to use in the first quarter plus the percent we expected you to use in the second quarter. Okay, so take that percentage and multiply that by your initial allocation minus any reductions that you may have received in the previous quarter. Okay, and so then we're going to take away the difference between your actual usage and your expected usage if it's obviously if your actual usage is less than your expected usage. If it's more, unfortunately, we don't give that time to you. Okay. Anyway, carry on. Next slide. So this is a hypothetical example of somebody who said, I'm going to use 25% of every quarter, and my allocation is 1,000 hours. Okay. So by April 22nd, we would have expected you to use 250 hours, but then this person used 50. So the reduction is going to be the difference between those. So we're going to take away 200, and now your new allocation is going to be 800. So then the next quarter, you managed to do some more work, but we really expected you to have used 300 hours, and you've only used 150. So we're going to take away the difference between 300 and 150, which is 150. And now your adjusted allocation is down to 650. Okay, then you do a rally in the third quarter, but it's just not quite enough. We expected you to use 400 hours, but you've used 300. So we're going to take away 100, and so now your allocation is going to be down to 550. Okay, I think that's all my slides. But I'm happy to take any questions if anybody has a question. Oh no, wait, I have 2 more slides. I can remember. Go ahead, next slide, sorry. My summary slide, yay. So we perform allocation reductions to redistribute time from underutilizing projects. So keep using your allocation consistently throughout the allocation year in order to avoid a reduction. And you can always ask for more allocation from the DOE allocation manager who awarded your project if you're worried about overutilization. And my last slide, I have some resources, it's links for, if you go to, those are just links so you can learn more about the allocation reduction scheme. We put out an announcement about it. And I also linked to the compute time increase request form in case you want to ask for more time. So any questions now? Okay, I guess I explained it all so brilliantly.
Yes.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So I think I used the mix of emailing directly the allocation manager and then last time using this form. Is there a difference? Is the form, being paid attention to, or direct email is a better solution?
Okay, the reason we implemented the form is because that way it'll automatically route that request to the right person.
Okay, so it should be the same. Okay.
Yeah, so we've found a lot of people actually don't know who their allocation manager is.
Right, I understand.
So that's why we have that form. It's also handy because then everything is in the same location. And some allocation managers are more responsive than others. Clayton, do you want to make any comments about this? You deal with them the most.
The allocation managers prefer that you use the form because then they are able to keep track of it and not just have a bunch of loose emails trying to figure out who needs time and such.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, understood.
Mm-hmm. And I did want to make one comment about the allocation reduction exemption requests. Typically, you need to submit an exemption request for each quarter that you need an exemption. You can't just submit one exemption and say, can I be exempted for the whole year?
Yeah, thank you for that.
Unless you have a really, really, really good reason why you're not using that time.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, well, now that we've gone over how this is done and that whole process, John is actually going to show us how to deal with this information as a PI. So, John, do you want to go ahead and share and kind of do your thing, or you want me to show your slides?
I'll share because I might jump on the NERSC website for some
Yes, absolutely.
activity.
Alrighty.
See if this works.
You may have to request, but then I will,
Send request.
someone will approve it. Hopefully. Is anyone able to approve it? I don't know who owns it.
Maybe we just promote him to a.
Oh, sure. Let's see if I can do that. More. I don't think I can do that either. Oh yeah, I'm a co-host. Charles, hey, are you there? I think you might have to do this.
Yeah, it looks like he has to do it. I'm only a co-host.
Okay, shoot. Okay, how about in the meantime we just
We can start, and if I'll go through the slides, and if Charles is able to
Yeah.
do that, we can back up and do some interactivity.
Okay, sounds good. If someone wants to ping Charles and see if
I'll ping him.
Okay, thanks. Okay, all right, here we go.
Okay. Okay, so this is a few of the things I've found are good to pay attention to and useful tools, some of which Rebecca touched on. So as mentioned, I'm an old person and I've been around at NERSC for a while. I gave up my U9760 username a while ago. So I know people who have insisted on keeping their usernames back when NERSC allocated numbers. People are very proud of their 3-digit numbers, those who still have them. Maybe some of you don't know what I'm talking about, but that's how it used to be. All right, so next slide. Okay, so IRIS is the landing page. I asked a question on Slack the other day, what does IRIS stand for? Because IS looks like information services, but the conclusion that Slack came to was that IRIS means you see things. Maybe somebody could chime in on that.
I think that's
So-
accurate. It's like the eye, like the iris
Yeah,
in your
right.
eye.
So this has been very useful since NERSC rolled it out several years ago to kind of pull all this information into one place. Um, so on this page is what you would see if you logged into Iris, you would see your projects on the left that you have membership in and and the amount of remaining time. Some of these projects are defunct, which is why they're 100%, but mostly the conclusion you can draw from this slide is that PIs don't have time to do computation. Because this is my personal time remaining, and you set things up, you compile things, but other people burn through the time. So this is as a user, this is a good place to see how much compute you've used or how much you have left. Over on the left is a hamburger menu because it looks like a hamburger, these 3 horizontal lines. And if you select that, there's a lot of other utilities. And in particular, there are utilities that users might find helpful. So you can see, like, I took this screenshot yesterday when NERSC was down, so that's why you see, although these might be my personal jobs, but you can see that you can select all users and you can see the pancake menu optionally. You can see how many jobs are in various queues, and there are other utilities that might be useful. You can even browse your local files without logging in or going through, say, a Jupyter interface. JavaScript generator is useful if you're struggling to understand what that -C flag means, or the difference between nodes and CPUs and the different -ns. This will help you spit out a script. And there's a PI toolbox and some other things. Mostly we'll focus on what's useful for PIs here. So on the first bullet point I have here is on this page you can select your default charge account. So if you have multiple accounts, you can select one that even if you don't specify a repo in your script, that one will be charged. And you can change that default, of course. All right, next slide.
Okay, good. Also, can folks see my cursor when I
I
try
can
to?
see it. Yeah.
Okay, good. Then I will continue to try to point
Thanks.
it.
Okay. So on the status page, below the section that tells you, the services that are up or down is a selection of these heat maps showing queue wait times. And in the slider, you can adjust the range of scale. So red hits at 48, I think, in this one. And if you look on this, then you can see, how long you should expect to wait when you submit a job, depending on how long you've asked for and how many cores you've asked for, or nodes in this case. I always tell users, be honest. Like, a lot of people have the habit of just like every job they submit asks for 12 hours and a certain amount of nodes, even though the job they know is going to finish in 1 hour. And that really affects your wait time because the system will believe you. So that's more for a user perspective. You can also see some interesting patterns here showing like priorities given sort of like at, say, you look like around 13 or 14 hour requests. And if you would think if you only asked for 1 or 2 nodes, that should be faster, but it's not because there is some priority given to larger jobs. And there's more information further down this page in different metrics to see how active the machine is. So next slide.
Sure. I would just
Yep.
add, I think there's also priority for sharing nodes. You tend to get your
Yes.
jobs allocated faster if you're
Right.
just doing something real fast. So it's either you're running
Yeah.
a really big job and there's priority,
Right.
and you're running a shared job and there's priority. But I think the
Right.
majority of NERSC users actually just run single node jobs. It's
Yeah. If
pretty
you're
common.
running, like, this is a good example, like if you want to compile something, the interactive queue is also extremely fast to almost instantaneous. But there are limits to how many resources you can ask for. But that's very useful for like parallel builds where you only need like, say, 4 or 8 cores. And because there are 256 multi-threaded processes available on a node, once somebody asks for one node to say 4 processes, that node is available for other partial requests as well. So the fill-in is efficient. All right, so let's go to the next slide. So user management, this is more of a PI thing. So it's a little, sometimes I find like the word roles, like is not the first thing you might jump to when you were thinking about adding users or something, but that's where it is in the menu. And this will show, you can change, if you're overall PI, you can give people PI proxy information status. Most people are users. And this is a list of the users, and you can add a new user. There's many ways that users get added in there. Somebody can request an account if they don't have, say you have a colleague who wants to run in your repo, and you tell them, go to the new user page, enter a request, enter our repo, and ask for an account. And then that will appear as a request on this page. But if you just want to add somebody who has an existing NERSC account, you can use this add user option here. And this stuff that says from last year and such, at the beginning of each allocation year, you need to reauthorize all your users. So if you hit the from last year button, then everybody who was in your project last year rolls over to the next year. And you can remove people, etc. And under the CPU and GPU tabs, you can also modify the amount of time they have. I think I have more on that. So this is the the simplest job that a PI has is to manage who is in the project and or not. So next slide. So this is a usage curve. This is the main topic that Rebecca was going over in the last slide. If you select one of the repos you're in, you'll see this utilization curve for the whole year. The yellow symbols on this curve, along with the beginning of the allocation year, are the 4 quarters, and at each of those yellow points, that's when reallocation occurs. And it's not shown here, but when you're looking on the live feed, it will tell you how many hours are at risk for, this might not say it because I'll go over to see that we're above the utilization rate, but it'll say like X thousands of node hours are at risk for the next reallocation period. These two curves here around the yellow curve, one is green, one is blue. The blue one is charged hours, I believe, and or it could be one, I'm sorry, I'm mixing them up, but one curve is the actual charge time, and the other curve is the actual node hours used. And those are different because of charge factors. It depends on whether you run in the premium queue or regular queue. Ideally, you want your charge factor as close to 1 or even less than 1. Thank you. Blue is used for that, or less than 1. You can't just run in the premium queue the whole year, or to burn up time. Something that Rebecca didn't say explicitly is, why are there reallocations? It might be obvious, like, there's a certain number of node hours available at the beginning of the year, which is the number of nodes times the number of hours in the year, given some downtime. Since the number of nodes doesn't really change appreciably, it's time, and they don't make more time. So the time gets used up whether you use it or not. And they don't want a situation in the 4th quarter where everybody has their full allocation and is trying to ram it through in the premium queue in the quarter of the time, which is, of course, not possible. So this keeps the machine balanced, keeps the amount of time that people have available to run at a level that reflects the amount of actual time left in the year. So that's the fundamental reason why reallocation is done. As Rebecca said a few times, the best way to get more time is to use your time. You might check with your program manager. They might say, I have nothing to give you, in which case maybe be more careful. But in general, so there's always somebody in the management of your program that is not using their time. And you can take their time basically by using up your time. So if you're halfway through the year and you've used like 90% of your time, that's when you fill out that form and say, please give me more time. We've, been very successful and we're, moving ahead on this project and we need more time to finish it. And as a PI, your job is sort of to keep an eye on the utilization. Yes, that's right. If I was being able to be interactive, as Steven says, you can hover over this line and it'll show you the actual values.
So you have been promoted now, John.
Okay. We'll go over the last slide and then maybe do a little interactive stuff.
Perfect.
Okay, so
Next slide.
I have other projects where this time is well below the yellow curve, and there's only so much you can do to get your users to use it, but be aware, if you don't use your time up, that will impact your success in the next air cap. And people who told you they were going to use a certain amount of time in the report, you should ask them, like, why aren't you using time? So that just is keeping the project healthy going forward, so that you ask for 1,000 node hours and get 100 from NERSC because NERSC says, well, you didn't use your time last year. So, but you can always get more time, as I say, by using up your time. So, next slide. Okay, I think that's it and these are just some resources that links that were in here or that are useful to see.
Sure.
So I see there's a lot. Maybe I'll try to address any questions and then maybe we can go to something interactive.
Sure. Were there any questions? If anyone wants to unmute and ask, that's totally fine. Okay, in the meantime, why don't I stop sharing? And John, if you want to try to share your screen, feel free.
Let's see if this works. Just have to find the right page. Let's see. Oh, no, let's see. That's not the right page. Okay, let's see. Um, this is the right one. Actually, do you guys see the tips and tricks slide?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, maybe I had it. So I'm just going to Zoom is hiding my menus. Let's see, what do we have here? Okay, so we were looking at this Iris page before, and I showed these menus. But if you go over here and you see the utilization curve, this is a project that is defunct. Like I asked for the project just to be continued for collaboration and very tiny tasks. So there's very little time here, and nobody's actually running. But you can see the curve here and node hours, and it says hours at risk. So it's going to take away a quarter of our time approximately at this point. And you can go into these menus and sort of adjust node hours charge. Really, nobody's done anything, but this would normally be sorted, and you can change people's time. So this is something I wanted to say. There's like two strategies here. Some PIs just give everybody 100% and just sort of keep an eye on what people are doing. And sometimes somebody blows through half the allocation. The other thing to do is kind of try to sort of approximately weight the percentage allocated by what was in the ERCAP report appropriately weighted by how much time was actually awarded. And if somebody, gets below 20% and they need more time, you can always adjust that throughout the year. The other thing that's kind of interesting to see is, Iraqi,
Yeah,
is
if I can interrupt, I don't know if you want
yeah,
now.
sure.
Quick question. So I noticed that that percentage is a percentage from the initial total allocation.
Hmm.
I somehow, when I was doing it, now I know, but before I thought it was a percentage of kind of the leftover resources. That would
Right.
be a little more useful because, it's a dynamic thing because as
Hmm.
we go, as the project develops, half year is already done. I kind of know that, okay, I want now for this particular workflow to use 30% of the rest. And
Mm.
then, so when I was putting 30%, it was still using everything left because it was 30% of
Yeah,
initial. And um, yeah, just to
that's
comment
that's a fair
on,
thing to be aware of.
yeah,
Yeah, you have so that would allow somebody, if somebody had 30% of the initial allocation, you didn't change it, and you got down to the end of the year, and there was only 30% left. Yeah, they could use all the time, but
exactly, yes.
you
So
kind of
yeah,
have to keep an eye on that.
yeah, I have to revisit this as it progresses. Yeah, it's yeah. Just a
The,
comment that
sure.
it would have been helpful for me to have maybe another one, a percentage of leftover. But
Yeah. So you can of course add absolute hours, but that really is just another way
yeah,
of
that's
having the
hard
same
to,
problem
yeah.
that you mentioned. Like at some point, however you choose to assign their time, in the
Hmm.
absolute sense, it's going to be
Yeah.
larger than the remaining time.
Yes. Yes.
Um, Another interesting thing is, I don't know if I have one here. Try to hide the usernames, but if you see, like, if you order so this is like the long tail effect that you see this in jobs, like, the I think Libby mentioned that, most jobs are like one or two nodes, right? But there's a long tail. There's like a job or two that are out using like half the machine sometime in the year. And you see the same thing in users, like the node hours charged. There's a few heavy users. Those are the people you need to pay attention to. And then it quickly falls off to single digits and nothing, right? So, and this is very, very typical, especially once you have more than a few people in the group. So generally, if you're looking to burn time or keep an eye on people, you only have to keep an eye on like a half a dozen people, because those will be the ones who will be using time and burning up the time. See anything else? If there are any other specific questions, this is the utilities menu we mentioned, so you can go through here and select things. The file browser. This is a JavaScript generator. This is kind of useful to understand. There's a subtlety because Perlmutter uses hyperthreading in terms of requesting jobs and making sure that you have a physical node for each process if that is needed. But generally, this is a useful place to go to see what's going on in your account and the system. But this presentation is mainly about Iris, and that's mainly the things that I typically use to keep an eye on this top level account. Here's an example where we're not using a lot of time yet, and like a lot of projects, time gets used up more towards the middle of the year as people get ready for conferences. And you can kind of adjust for this in the air cap request if that is generally true for your group, so that this curve is not. I don't know. That's a question for the NERSC people online. If you submit an air cap request saying we're going to use only 10% of our time in the first quarter, but 50% of our time in the second quarter, does this yellow curve reflect that? Or is that just internally accounted for?
Yes, it will reflect that.
Oh, awesome. Well, I should do that next year. Okay, well, that's about all I have to say.
And actually,
yeah.
sorry, if
Go ahead.
you go to the details tab for that project,
Um,
Next to
to the
groups
right,
in the yellow.
in the yellow towards the right.
oh, yeah, got it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you can see there on that quarterly estimates, it'll reflect from the ERCAP request. It's under the ERCAP project
Right
details.
there, right at the very bottom of that.
Oh, there. Yep. Okay. I learned something. Yeah, that's very useful. That's reflected dynamically, so that people won't freak out and say, "Oh, I'm going to lose my time," even though I requested um, the time to be used up more slowly. That's great.
Imagine those are those percentages that Rebecca was showing that they use for calculating. So if you're able to, when you're doing your ERCAP, provide that information accurately, that probably, I mean, clearly it's able to help kind of get ahead of that issue. So that's very cool.
Right.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
also the calculations are done separately for CPU time versus GPU time. So you
Right.
could be
Okay.
very active in GPU and not lose any time and not using any CPU or something, and you lose time there. So you'll see the similar graphs on each of those two tabs.
Good
Right.
to know. So I will just stop sharing if
Sure.
there's nothing else to say. So
Sure. Thank you, John. That was really, really excellent. Very helpful, I'm sure, to a lot of PIs, and also to us. Were there
you're
any
welcome.
last questions, comments, discussion, other tips that folks have come across that they want to share? This is an excellent time to do that. Anything you think might help your fellow PI? If not, I guess another question to the PIs here is what other topics might be of help to you if there are any. We get a lot of questions, and we know allocation reduction is an important topic, so that's why we wanted to address that before the first one. But if you have any thoughts or have other topics that you think would be great for a community call, please do let us know. Koichi, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the other things that I have to do as a PR is the request for the storage size increase. That
Mm.
happens, particularly the project is a long term,
Do you
a
mean
funded one.
Scratch or
Uh, all of
CFS?
them big, actually, all most often it's CFS, but
Okay.
over the last few years, we feel sometimes it's more difficult to get CFS increase. But also, CFS, there's no parts, so project members tend to, save, maybe I need something later and they forget about and they don't clean up. Or some project member do the same, but they left, they got new position somewhere and don't use it anymore. Nobody can even access those. So sometimes I have to clean up and then and because of those, we also started using collaboration account for each two project I'm working on and use that Scratch space as a shared space for the project members. So that because of the big data we do, you could run simulation or process observation data to big data. We download big data from other places and those really choke CFS. So we use Scratch Space with collaboration account so people can share big data, but that also we have to request increase every 6 months or year, depends on the size. So if there is any guidance, of course, good practice data file management is important. Also guidance for the requesting which space, how much is any, like, I don't know rule of thumb. Okay, you have this much members or this many years or this much CPU allocation, then maybe you could say this much CFS allocation is reasonable. But of course, we ask for specific CFS allocation as part of the use app. We calculate some expected usage, but still we tend to really choke. So I do request few times a year for one project, a couple of times or a few times for CFS, and then sometimes HPSS, and then also shared Scratch space. I'm doing this for two projects, and I start to feel bad to bother NUG help this case. Sorry again, but it's time for me to request, and
No,
so
that's a
that
good
might be a
point.
topic too.
That's a good point. That's actually a great question. John, did you want to add anything?
I had thought about including that. Somehow it slipped my mind. It's very project specific. A lot of code projects burn a lot of CPU time for the amount of data they create. Although I have run into that. Like, there's always this one user during Monte Carlo or something who's just like filling up. It's like, okay, you don't need the simulations from 3 years ago. You've even changed your model since then. So let's clean up some of this. And how much expense goes in the data should inform whether you should keep it. There's the saying, flops are free, in the sense that, well, that means something slightly different, but in general, it's often cheaper to recreate the data if you need it in the future rather than keep every single simulation. Or if you publish the paper, should you keep, how much of the raw data do you need to keep? And that's very specific. This is experimental data. Should you be storing it at NERSC? Should you be storing it somewhere else? All good questions. And I personally, I don't run into this problem too often on my projects, and it's usually
Okay.
simple. But I can imagine, like, you're acquiring data, and maybe NERSC is the only place where you have the 5 TB of data from an experiment. So what do you do? Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do any others have any thoughts on this? How do you manage large amounts of data? And we also encourage people to put data like the what you're talking about, Koichi, like stuff you want to keep for paper or whatever into HPSS, something that you don't think will be accessed, but you want to hang on to it. That's, the archive. That's sort of what it's meant for.
Great point. I feel like people, like half the NERSC users don't even know what that is anymore. It's like tape, what? What are you talking about?
They need to come to new user training.
I know, but
Okay.
it's actually, I mean, the utilities make it almost as seamless as just moving a directory. It's not
Yeah.
that hard, and you can the capacity is orders of magnitude bigger than the spinning
Hmm.
disks. So it's
Yeah.
an excellent point that I don't have any advice, Koichi, on like getting more time. That would be a question for Lippy and
But
others.
I think, right. No,
More
I mean,
space, I
and
can
I
say.
don't know this because I am not a specialist in the storage, but my sort of hunch is that a lot of times they'll want, I mean, there is a limited amount of space at some point, right? So if you have data that you want to keep, but is something that you don't need to access very frequently, I imagine you may get that suggestion of, okay, well, can you move this into HPSS to store it so that you clear up some room in CFS. I do see there's a comment. I thought I saw something, but now I can't see it. Oh, Alan. Alan, did you want to say anything? You can feel free to unmute and share.
Our project, because we do production data for the experiment, um, not only data, but also the simulation. So what we do is we have different tiers of data, and then we store a certain tier of data on NERSC. And then if we have a different version of the data, we just usually we keep it on NERSC for a while so people can retrieve the file quickly, and then we'll move them off to HPSS. We have someone specifically doing that for the collaboration.
Nice. That's excellent. And
But we still
Steve,
run out of space, and then we had to ask for more space from the allocation manager at times.
sure. Sure. Right, because CFS is also sort of allocated by an allocation manager. I don't know, Steve, if you want to make a plug at all for the stability and longevity of data in HPSS. If please, you're welcome to, or if you have any other comments.
Well, I can also comment on that because I have some data
Sure.
on HPSS for the last 30 years from,
Right.
and then I keep getting a renewal on HPSS for those data because those were the data for the snow experiment, which won a Nobel Prize. I don't want those experiments to want those data to disappear.
Sure.
And out of the last 25, 30 years or so, I've lost maybe one or two files. And I got notice from HPSS when they told us that the file is corrupt for whatever reason.
Sure.
And it wasn't a big experiment because back then the data size were pretty small. So but one or two files out of, I don't know, probably a couple 100,000 files is not bad.
Sure. Yeah,
Uh,
Steve Leak on our storage systems team.
yeah, I have to say I'm what do you call it? A little bit surprised and yeah, very very sorry. It's unfortunate that you even have one or two files. Generally speaking, the data on HPSS is pretty solid, and we have data that's been on there for well over 40 years. Another interesting thing about NERSC's archive system, unlike a lot of HPC centers, we actually have a lot of movement to and from tape. Quite often, tape systems are write once and read never again, whereas NERSC systems are actually quite active, and a quite large fraction of the data on tape does come back onto disk after a little bit. So that's a fairly normal use case for us. So certainly don't feel like putting something onto HPSS means it's just disappeared. It's a place to stash it while you're not actively using it. That said, while you are actively using it, the I guess reason behind CFS, we provision it with a fair bit of space because the intent is to be able to support as near as possible to all of the data that's actively being used by projects. The idea is to remove friction from you being able to do stuff. So of course, you can help by identifying things that can be pushed to tape, for instance. But if you are using, if you do need more space, it's worth asking for it. Generally, those requests they go first through consultants who check basically to make sure that it's a sensible request. It's got a good science reason, and if it's got a good science reason, then to the degree that we can, we do try to support
it. That's great. Thank you, Steve. That's really helpful. And actually, Stephen Gottlieb has asked an interesting question as well, about sort of the relative cost of using these different things. As John mentioned, sometimes recomputing it is sort of the best option, but it sounds like, it would be important to know really, is that true for, data or whatever, given the current situation of how data is stored and so forth. And I remember at some point also probably being asked and not being able to answer in any capacity, the relative sort of environmental cost of these things, like which one of these requires more infrastructure, more cooling, more, electricity, so forth, versus, if I put something on a magnetic tape and store it and the environment in the case is easier to manage, maybe that's more environmentally, sound. And that was a question, and I didn't know the answer. So maybe those are a couple questions that are useful and might encourage folks to make use of HPSS rather than thinking it's sort of like a data black hole or something like that. As Steve has mentioned, you can still access it. So yeah, any comments?
Yeah, for data at rest, tape is really low energy. I guess low energy sort of equates to low cost and low impact as well. The tape units do use environmental controls, but they're using that anyway, and there's quite a lot of capacity there. Spinning disk, of course, is going to be the next lowest. It's spinning, it's using energy, so it's definitely more energy hungry than data on tape. But less energy hungry than I guess actively used data. The question of compute versus retrieve is kind of an interesting one, and I don't know, and I don't even know if there is a very straightforward answer to that, because you've got a lot of factors at play here. For instance, with improving technology, what might have been a 3-week long job 10 years ago might be something you can run in a couple of hours now, which means it's kind of a lot cheaper than it was back then. Is it cheaper than fetching it from tape? Probably not. Although, depending on, I guess, how organized your data management is, finding where it is in your directory structure, there's a human time element as well.
Yeah, that's right.
I suspect in sheer energy costs, pulling it from tape is going to be the winner.
And I will just mention, and we can continue talking, that we've reached the hour. So of course, if you want to drop off, obviously you're free to do so. And thank you for attending. But I'm happy for us to continue the conversation if anyone wants to stick around. So as always, thank you. But yeah, Koichi, if you'd like to say something, feel free.
Thanks. Yeah, because just Steve mentioned the human cost of managing data, and then my hope is this AI agent workshop coming up. One of the things I want to do from that workshop is to maybe AI agent can regularly monitor the CFS file, the age, date of last access, and then once they hit some limit or threshold, they let the owner know, hey, I'm moving your data to HPSS in this directory in a very nice best practice way, keep in mind of the limit of the HTAR and that kind of things. That's one of my hope. But is there any security concern to let
I was going to say, and I couldn't possibly comment on this, but just that anytime we'll come up with an idea of like, well, this will make things easier for PIs or whoever users or whoever, there'll always be the next conversation of like, is this secure and so forth. So, but that's probably part of the reason to attend and be part of that conversation, because I'm sure that will be a conversation.
Okay. I hope
It's,
I
it's
get
probably worth keeping a human in the loop. Like, yeah, get the
Yeah.
agent to come up with a list of files
Yeah.
that can be archived, but maybe don't tell it to do the archiving and unarchiving,
Sure.
just in case it does something surprising.
Right. Maybe it can also give you like, I think this is how you do it, and give you the, HSI commands and stuff, and then the human is
Yeah.
responsible for vetting it or something like that, and then they have to actually sign in and run it probably. So
Oh yeah.
that seems
Click.
like a
Just click.
yeah, you just have to
Yeah.
copy paste or something, but that seems like a reasonable thing. But again, I don't know. I'm way above my pay grade. But that's a good point, Steve. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Koichi. All right, well, thanks everybody. Thanks, Stephen, for your comments as well. Steve, Leek, everybody. And hopefully see you all at the next conversation.
Thank
All
you.
right, have a
Bye.
lovely day. Bye.